And so, with the tearful goodbyes behind us, we were on our way. We made a straight run to Kos, and the next day reached Rhodes and then Patara. There we found a ship going direct to Phoenicia and got on board and set sail. Cyprus came into view on our left, but was soon out of sight as we kept on course for Syria and eventually docked in the port of Tyre. While the cargo was being unloaded, we looked up the local disciples and stayed with them 7 days. Their message to Paul from insight given by the Spirit was, "Don't go. Don't go to Jerusalem." And when our time was up, they escorted us out of the city to the docks. Everyone came along, men, women, children. They made a farewell party of the occasion. We all kneeled together on the beach and prayed. Then, after another round of saying goodbye, we climbed on board the ship while they drifted back to their homes. A short run from Tyre to Ptolemais completed the voyage. We greeted our Christian friends there and stayed with them a day. In the morning, we went on to Caesarea and stayed with Philip the evangelist, who was one of the 7. Philip had 4 virgin daughters who prophesied. After several days of visiting, a prophet from Judea by the name of Agabus came down to see us. He went right up to Paul, took Paul's belt, and in a dramatic gesture, tied himself up, hands and feet. He said, "This is what the Holy Spirit says. The Jews in Jerusalem are going to tie up the man who holds this belt just like this and hand him over to godless unbelievers." When we heard that, we and everyone there that day begged Paul not to be stubborn and persist in going to Jerusalem, but Paul wouldn't budge. "Why all this hysteria? Why do you insist on making a scene and making it even harder for me? You're looking at this backward. The issue in Jerusalem is not what they do to me, whether arrest or murder, but what the Master Jesus does through my obedience. Can't you see that?" We saw that we weren't even making a dent in his resolve, and we gave up. "It's in God's hands now," we said. "Master, you handle it." It wasn't long before we had our luggage together and were on our way to Jerusalem. Some of the disciples from Caesarea went with us and took us to the home of Mnason, who received us warmly as his guests. A native of Cyprus, he had been among the earliest disciples. And in Jerusalem, our friends, glad to see us, received us with open arms. The first thing next morning, we took Paul to see James. All the church leaders were there, and after a time of greeting and small talk, Paul told the story, detail by detail, of what God had done among the non-Jewish people through his ministry. They listened with delight and gave God the glory. They had a story to tell too. And just look what's been happening here. Thousands upon thousands of God-fearing Jews have become believers in Jesus. But there's also a problem because they're more zealous than ever in observing the laws of Moses. They've been told that you advise believing Jews who live surrounded by unbelieving outsiders to go light on Moses, telling them that they don't need to circumcise their children or keep up the old traditions. This isn't sitting at all well with them. Well, we're worried about what will happen when they discover that you're in town. There's bound to be trouble. So here's what we want you to do. There are 4 men from our company who've taken a vow involving ritual purification, but have no money to pay the expenses. Join these men. Join them in their vows and pay their expenses, and then it'll become obvious to everyone that there is nothing to the rumors going around that you are in fact scrupulous in your reverence for the laws of Moses. In asking you to do this, we're not going back on our agreement regarding non-Jews who become believers. we continue to hold fast to what we wrote in that letter, namely, to be careful not to get involved in activities connected with idols, to avoid serving food offensive to Jewish Christians, and to guard the morality of sex and marriage. So Paul did it. He took the men, joined them in their vows, and paid their way. The next day he went to the temple to make it official and stay there until the proper sacrifices had been offered and completed for each of them.